because it's a war-torn country. It's a country that does not enjoy full democracy yet, and there are many serious violations of human rights. I would like to thank you very much, the Parliament, from the Dutch Parliament, for extending us such a warm welcome and giving me this honor. It's the first time I am in the Dutch Parliament. I'm very impressed, and on behalf of the Cambodian people, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the Dutch people and the Dutch government for their continuous support to help Cambodia achieve democracy and developing toward better lives for the Cambodian people. Thank you very much.
Oké. Nou, ik ben de minst belangrijke, maar de beste vriend van Sam is Vin. Die werkt bij mijn buurman. Hij komt bij mij vragen van, mijn vriend komt naar Nederland of naar Europa, kun jij een gesprek regelen? Ik zei nou, dat ga ik gewoon proberen. Dus vandaar dat het gelukt is. En daar ben ik heel blij. Dank u wel.
I would make a brief summary. My colleagues, there are many of them. Some of them come from France. Mr. Netherland is the president of the section of the chapter of my party in France. There are 200,000 Cambodians living in France, and two other from France, and these three live in the Netherlands. So thank you very much. I think we have finished the presentation. On the situation in Cambodia, we are now still in a transition, hopefully towards more democracy, and hopefully toward better living conditions for the ordinary Cambodian people. The population is 14 million inhabitants. It is one of the poorest countries in the world, and also, according to Transparency International, one of the most corrupt countries in the world. We benefit from large international assistance. We are heavily dependent on international assistance, and the Netherlands is a major donor country on the bilateral basis, and also through the European Union. So the ruling party is called the Cambodian People's Party. It is a former communist party, still very authoritarian. They have been in power for nearly 30 years with the same prime minister. And the country suffers three problems. One problem is deforestation. We are an agricultural country. The forest cover used to be 73% before the war, about 40 years ago. Now it has shrunk to less than 30%. So it is massive deforestation, and this has led to a disruption of the ecosystem, and we have a successive series of floods, of droughts that destroy the crops of the farmers. 80% of the population are farmers, so the country is getting poorer and poorer for farmers because of the deforestation. And in spite of massive international assistance, I think the country is committing suicide, regardless of how much money we receive from abroad. If we don't preserve our natural resources, we are heading for disaster. The second problem, which is also related to corruption, is land grabbing. Many poor farmers suffer from land confiscation because powerful people and rich people, they use their power to take the land of poor farmers, and more farmers are becoming landless. So this is tragedy. And the third problem is unemployment. Unemployment, especially among the young people. Half of the Cambodian people, meaning 7 million out of 14 million, are under 20. So a lot of young people, and they cannot find jobs because foreign investments are reluctant to invest in Cambodia. They invest in neighboring countries, in China, of course, but also in Thailand, in Vietnam, but they are reluctant to come to invest in Cambodia and to create jobs because the country is so corrupt, too corrupt. And we need, my party is trying to put the country back on its track to fight against corruption, to establish the rules of law. Then we could attract more foreign investors, foreign direct investment that will create jobs. So these are the reform. My party is trying to address the three problems: deforestation, land grabbing, and to attract more foreign investments through the fight against corruption so that jobs can be created. And there will be a crucial election next year in July. So my party is the second largest party. We have been moving up every election, and last election it was a local election earlier this year. We have become the third, from the third we have moved to the second party, and we hope to become the first party after the next election and to form the next government and to engage Cambodia on the path of democratic reforms. So I look forward to benefiting from your moral support, especially from people who have been to Cambodia, who have expressed their concern to Cambodia. We are grateful to donor countries such as the Netherlands, but our message is that please help us to help ourselves. We don't want to rely on international assistance forever. We don't want to remain a beggar country. We want to live with dignity. So we have to put our house in order. So the message I send to friends all over the world, especially in the Netherlands, where we have friends in all political parties, is please to help a country like Cambodia to help himself to put his own house in order through democratic reforms. And only Democrats and democratic parties can engage in such a will to implement democratic reforms and put the country on the right track. So thank you very much for your welcome, your moral support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rainsy. I suggest that we ask questions and then you answer. So who would like a question, please?
Yeah. First of all, you said you've moved from third to second party, but with how much percentage? And my question is, when we met earlier, you said that it was for opposition politicians very difficult and very dangerous in Cambodia. Has that changed for the better? That you can freely operate as a party, that you can do not fear for persecution or political murder or those kind of things?
The situation has improved to a certain extent about violence, political violence. We have less killing, still killing. The day before, three days ago, one of our activists, a lady, was killed. Her husband was killed a few years ago. Her son was killed last year, and this time she herself was killed. So this is a violent country. We inherit from the Khmer Rouge. The Khmer Rouge are very violent. So this tradition of violence and of impunity continue to prevail. Therefore, even though there is less political violence, it is still dangerous to be in the opposition. Second, the ruling party, because they kill less people, they are using more subtle tricks to win election. Now they disenfranchise some of their voters, so that the opposition voters cannot be able to cast their ballot. At the last commune election, 35% of the electorate were deprived from their voting rights through political discrimination, through harassment. So they disenfranchise, prevent people from voting. So this is less dangerous than being killed, but still we cannot prevail democratically. So even given those instances, 35% of the population could not vote. I think most of them would have voted for the opposition because the ruling party had identified them as opposition supporters. It is why they have disenfranchised them. So 35%, you can say out of the 35, maybe 20, 25 would really vote for the opposition had they been given the chance to vote. And on the other hand, the remaining vote, my party got 25% of the vote. So potentially 25, we actually got it, and potentially we would have 25 remaining vote. So the game next election is to ensure that everybody will have the right to vote, to undo, to counter the tricks used by the ruling party to disenfranchise people. So my battle, what we are trying to do now, is to mobilize people, to ask the United Nations, the UNDP, to help us to ensure more transparency in the next election. So to answer your question, we got 25% of the vote, but potentially there are 25% that we have to mobilize and to push them to vote.
The moment the ruling party, the former communist or communist, how you want to call them, see that you could become the first party, I think that they will try to repress you even more.
Yes, this is the risk. 2 years ago, I was expelled from parliament. I was sentenced to prison for 18 months of prison. I was accused of defamation because I criticized the government, and the government put me to jail. They want to put me in jail. They lift my parliamentary immunity. But there is pressure from the international community, the Netherlands, the European Union, the United States, put pressure on the Cambodian government to not kill less, not to expel members of parliament. Now they are using tricks, electoral tricks, but still we have to counter that. I hope that you would come to Cambodia again to observe the election, but I would urge international observers to come a long time before, because the establishment of voter list, it's the game, the result of the election is already decided when they establish the voter list. Now they are establishing voter list. We have to denounce all the tricks to manipulate the election long before voting day through manipulation of voter list.
When I was in Cambodia, I was a short-time observer, and we learned a lot from long-time observers. Probably there are people already in the country looking through the process. I'm pleased to learn from you that you say, okay, there's a glimpse of light in the end of the tunnel, because when I was preparing for this meeting, I thought a lot have happened since I left the country and you were expelled, and the fact that you are optimistic is very hopeful. Only we are also here to learn from each other, and I believe it's the Netherlands, not by itself, but it's the European Union's mission to help democracy in Cambodia. Can you please enlighten us in which way the European Union is helping you, and in which way it's not helping you, so maybe we can ask them to change their behavior.
The European Union is the largest donor institution. If you add the assistance given by each country, so the amount of international assistance is huge from the European Union, directly from the bilateral and through the European Union. So if the European Union has signed an agreement with Cambodia to provide this aid, I think Article 1 of the agreement says that this assistance is conditional on the respect for democracy. But the European Union does not apply this fully. If they had applied it, I think the assistance would have been suspended and there would be warning. So there are pressures from some countries in the European Union not to be too tough. I would say France. France is very lenient because France was a former colonial power. She wants to have some kind of influence, political influence, cultural influence, some economic influence. So she is very lenient. But I have to praise countries such as the Netherlands, which sticks to principles and which are firm when it comes to respect for human rights. So the Netherlands, Germany, Scandinavian countries are very tough. So to that extent, the European Union is hope that the international community will put pressure on the Cambodian government.
I'm sorry, I could not find the actual figures at this moment, but is there still development aid from the Netherlands for good governments going to Cambodia? I thought it was ended, the program.
There are some programs still going on, humanitarian programs, and through the European Union, of course, but directly from the Netherlands, there is still some ongoing programs.
Yeah, I have a question regarding two of the points you mentioned, two of the focus points. The loss of ownership over the land,
Yes.
and unemployment, because if you want long-term stability, well, we should address these issues. So maybe you can give us more insight. Who are the landowners? Are they the women? Are they the men? And how is the world among the people themselves? So what could be a direction of a solution to this problem? And also you mentioned the problem of the lack of foreign investment, and due to corruption. But still you request foreign investors to come in. So what is the way out here? What can be done on this?
Yes. Regarding the land ownership, Cambodia used to be a communist country up until 1979. All the land belonged to the state. But after that, the current ruling party came to power and they start to liberalize. But the liberalization starting in the late 80s, was not a real privatization. It was the apparatchiks of the Communist Party that take the land under their own name, their families, their business associates, their cronies. So they just transferred from the state to the apparatchiks, not to the ordinary people. And now they continue, they continue to transfer state lands, and some land were distributed to the farmers on a practical basis. But now, because land price increase is a land speculation, the same people, they take the land of the small farmers, they take huge plots of land from the state, and now they take small plots of land from farmers. So millions of farmers start to lose their land. A few group of people, I would say 5% of the population, would control 50% of the land. So it's very, it would lead to social unrest if we continue like that. So farmers, now 80% of the population, they are getting poorer and poorer. One, they lose their land. Two, because of deforestation, they suffer from floods, from droughts, from this destruction of their crops. So this is a real tragedy for farmers that constitutes so the mass of the population. Second, there's
Sorry, a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
What can be done on this? What do you see as a way out here?
This is part of the fight against corruption. my party suggests that there is an anti-corruption law, which would force all the leaders to declare their assets and to specify the origin of their assets, to be able to justify. If they cannot just justify, if they are rich because they take the land of poor people, because they steal the money from international assistance, unfortunately, all the international assistance does not reach the people it is intended to help. So those people, they have become very rich, and we need to fight very tough against corruption. But it is an uphill battle, because the ruling party, they don't want this anti-corruption law to be implemented or even to be adopted by the National Assembly. The National Assembly that is dominated by the former Communist Party, they block any attempt to get that law adopted. And so I think the last resort would be the elections. If we can ensure that the elections is free enough, is fair enough, then definitely the people who suffer, they will vote for a change. But this is how the key is to organize acceptable election. So this is about the land. About the unemployment, the son of our farmers, the children of farmers, they don't have land, so they want to find some other jobs. But there are no jobs, contrary to neighboring countries. You have legitimate investors, investors with international reputation, they have all the technology, they can create jobs, they have the markets, the export, etc. They did invest in Thailand, in Vietnam, but they don't invest in Cambodia. The investors in Cambodia now are dubious investors, land speculators, human traffickers, drug traffickers, casino operators, gambling, the mafia, the local mafia. They like Cambodia very much because it is a corrupt country. They can do all kinds of business, but the business they are doing is not helpful for the Cambodian people. It does not create jobs. They take the land, they destroy the forest. They create prostitution, human traffickers, young girls, even children are trafficked. And the tourists in Cambodia, a large portion of tourism is just sex tourism, because there is no rule of law. So it is why we need to combat corruption, to establish the rule of law, to encourage legitimate investors to invest. We would like to have investors from the European Union. They do not want to invest now. They said one day, if Cambodia becomes a real democracy, they will come to invest. And then we will have jobs for our youth, like in Thailand, like in Vietnam.
Thank you, Mr. Rainsy. I'd like to add a few questions from my
Yes,
side. On the deforestation problem, what is being done already? Or what should be done? And also interested in the causes of the deforestation. Is it to populate, increasing population, or is it for logging and things like that? And perhaps briefly on the tribunal, could you comment on its progress? And about the importance of free and fair elections, I completely support what you're saying about the importance of having such elections. But for us as the international community to be able to do something about it, or to call the attention of our government to continue calling for such elections, it's important, or it helps if we have reports or evidence of such harassment as you're talking about. For instance, the last elections, communal elections, were they monitored? Is there an assessment which has negative assessments? Do you have cases which stand scrutiny?
Can you excuse me? I have next week. Yes, I thank you.
So deforestation this is the main issue. I was Minister of Finance in the first government, and I opposed the Prime Minister on this issue. And I asked them to stop it, but they did not. Then I organized a press conference and I denounced the government, and following day I was fired from the government. It was about 14 years ago, so 14 years ago, meaning that this issue is an ongoing issue. Cambodia is rich in forest, as I said before. 73% of the land area is covered with forest, and the tropical wood is very good and can be sold at an expensive price. So many countries like Japan, even America, Europe, they want to buy the wood. And the Cambodian government gave it to the army first. I opposed it. I said the army should not be given the right to cut the wood. But they continued. It started with the army, and now with all kind of companies, dubious companies who can pay bribes to the government. There is a organization, Global Witness, that denounced it. And Global Witness was first recruited to be a monitor, the official monitor of forest and forest operations in Cambodia. And they denounced, and the Cambodian government fired them also. But what I am sorry about is that the donor communities, including the European Union, they did not defend Global Witness. They turned a blind eye. They should have defended Global Witness. Global Witness has the credibility. They cannot accuse of being politically motivated, etc. But the Cambodian government, they fight Global Witness. And the deforestation continue, the erosion of the soil, the siltation of the rivers, of the lake, has changed the water system. It's now floods because of the erosion, that the rivers and the lake get more and more shallow, and with the same amount of rain, because it is shallow, it overflood. Then you have flooding in the rainy season. On the contrary, in the dry season, because the water is shallow, it dries up very fast, and people got drought. And without the forest, there are now storms. The wind from the sea, no more forest to protect, there are storms. And the river, the landslide, the land fall into the river. So many people get killed, have their crop endangered. And this is not natural disasters, it's man-made disasters that we should stop. But this, we need a political will inside Cambodia and also on the part of the international community to put pressure on the Cambodian government to defend organizations, institutions such as Global Witness, so that they continue to monitor. About the elections, it's better, it's an improvement now. The UNDP, they had changed their staff. The UNDP is in charge of coordinating international assistance to help organize the election in Cambodia. Before, we had very lenient, complacent staff from the UNDP. They turned a blind eye to irregularities. But now they start to point to irregularities and to denounce and to try to take corrective measures. So if the Netherlands directly and through the European Union, if we could push the UNDP and sometimes even need to encourage the UNDP and to defend the UNDP, because the Cambodian government will try to get rid of the UNDP. Whoever denounced them, they will try to get rid of them. And what has been denounced is what I had just mentioned, the disenfranchisement of millions of voters, of potential voters. So we have to take corrective measures to allow those people to come back to be able to vote. Another measure is to do.
Excuse me, Mr. Rainsy, what do you mean exactly by the disenfranchisement? Can you give me an example?
Example, they take out your name from the voter list because they said that you are dead, even though you are not dead. they said that you have become crazy, because who decide that? The local authority. They think you are crazy. You should go to the hospital. You should not be able to vote. Like in the Soviet Union, they put people in the psychiatric hospital. But we protest. I am not crazy. I can vote. But they still say that we are crazy. So they claim that we have left the village. If you go to the farm, the village chief, the local authorities, they come, they don't see you at your house. They said this person has left the village on a permanent basis, so his name should be erased. And when we protest, the local authorities are so powerful. The village chief is pro-government. The commune chief is pro-government. The police is pro-government. The commune clerk, all the administrative, the state apparatus is controlled by the ruling party. So we cannot do anything. We have to lodge complaint with the UNDP, and it is why we need observers, international observers. They need to come now, because when they come 5 days before voting day, too late. All the voter lists have been, they call clean up voter lists. Actually, it is political discrimination to allow only supporters of the ruling party to be able to vote. So the Netherlands can help us doing this, If you ask your ambassador, if you ask through the European Commission to help push, the UNDP and the international community, the diplomats, to pay more attention on the organization of elections.
Maybe, Madam Chair, question from my side.
Please.
You now summed up who would help you, who would help the democratic process, but who is helping the government? Is that China? Because we have seen the same in Burma, where whatever the West does, it is counteracted by China. So we can have all kinds of economic measures or political measures, but the Chinese make them useless because they trade and support the regime in Myanmar. That is also the case with your governments getting the support from China.
Yes, very much so. The two main supporters of the Cambodian government now is China and Vietnam. Both are neighboring countries, both are communist countries, both do not pay attention to human rights, and they need, Cambodia. China needs natural resources. There are oil deposits on offshore in Cambodia. So China is wanting to get control of it. So China gives assistance, but without any consideration for human rights. So they move very hard, and they allow without any transparency. So the Cambodian government, they lack Chinese assistance, because the Chinese assistance they can use freely. So what I said that there are investors from the rest of the world, but investors from China, from Vietnam, from the mafia in the region. It is why the economy is not really developing. There are some development, the growth is 8%, sometimes 10% per year, but it is not sustainable, it is not equitable. If you destroy the natural resources, it is not sustainable, and of course it is not equitable. Only 5% of the population, they control the rest of they control the economy. So I think Cambodia is heading for trouble. The donor community, if they analyze the situation, they must understand that this is a time bomb. They will explode. Farmers, when they lose their land, this explain why the Khmer Rouge came to power. Now the same factors are being created to have a violent revolution again. And we are now prosecuting the Khmer Rouge.
Yes, if you could comment a little bit.
So this is a very strange country because the Khmer Rouge, they have not disappeared, and some of former Khmer Rouge are members of the Cambodian government now. Imagine Germany at the end of the Second World War. Even Hitler is dead, so Pol Pot is dead. But imagine Goebbels, Eichmann still alive, Ian Sari, even Hun Sen and Chia, something were former Khmer Rouge, but they are still in power. So they want to manipulate the international court. We would have preferred the court to be held in Den Haag, to have a real international court. But Cambodia is the only country where the criminals are still in power. The big criminals have gone, but the small and the medium-sized criminals are still there. So they don't want a real international court. They want what they call a mixture. They allow the United Nations to come, but they still control the judicial process. They control, they intimidate the witnesses. Nobody dare to come out to speak. They control half of the judges appointed by the Cambodian government, and the UN must decide by consensus. So if the Cambodian government say no, the UN appointed judge cannot make anything. So this court is not really a decent court, but Cambodian people accept it because a little justice is better than no justice. And justice